So, what is fragmentation? Fragmentation is the concept and understanding that as we grow up and go through our childhood, we inevitably encounter traumatic situations that we don't have the emotional tools to know how to navigate. We are somewhere and we get embarrassed and we don't know how to save face. Someone rejects us that we really care about or are interested in. Or maybe we're experiencing neglect at home and we don't know how to communicate our needs to other people. No matter whether it is a large trauma, rape, murder, something terrible in that sense, that something we call terrible in that sense, or if it is a smaller trauma, such as just being left out of a group when you really wanted to be included. We experience these moments for the first time at some point, and when we encounter them and we don't know what to do, we fragment. And when we fragment, we break into two different parts. One part that is the protector, that figures out exactly how to navigate the situation because, we have to get out of it somehow. So this aspect of us learns how to survive, protect, dominate a situation, save face, be graceful enough to get out of it, and keep our ego intact. The other part of us, however, the vulnerable, very, very fearful part of us that didn't know what to do when the situation first arose, also doesn't know what to do now that they've realized they made it onto the other side and they didn't feel like they were competent or had the tools to know how. They're living in a constant state of fear, doubt, low self-esteem, terror, and vulnerability. So there are these two differing parts within you that came from this same situation. And typically, as we grow up and go through life, we relate to the part of ourselves that was the protector, that was the survivor, that made a way. And that way might have often meant neglecting parts of yourself, giving up on who you are, making sure that you are agreeable and acceptable based off other people's standards. But this part survived. It made it out. This part, however, still exists. And this part that still exists has thoughts and opinions, just like this part does, that you actually choose to listen to because this is more socially acceptable. So when we fragment these different parts of ourselves, we keep carrying them throughout the rest of our life. But those fragments, those pieces, never emotionally mature past the point that they were birthed at in our life unless we go back and we help them mature. And that's a process called integration, making these fragments, these pieces of ourselves, into a whole mosaic of who we fully are, but that we actually have an ability to reparent. These fragments are small inner children that need structure, need reassurance, and need unconditional love. Things that a lot of us didn't get to experience from our own upbringing, from our own parents. So it's like, how do you expect me to know how to give this to myself? Because you're giving yourself all the things that you are hungry and aching for. And so even though you didn't have an example necessarily from your life experience, or maybe you did, of what nurture and care and compassion and kindness looked like, you can start to learn by listening and checking in on these fragments, actually listening to the voices in your head instead of suppressing them, to find out exactly what they want. What type of texture and touch do they like? What type of voice do they need to hear? What type of calm, soothing voice do they need versus a yelling, booming voice that makes them feel defensive and intimidated? These fragments are small parts of ourselves, small parts of consciousness that have split off just because we were not able at that young age to defend who we truly were. So we had to break off this consciousness, this power that we are, into different parts so that we could continue to navigate and process. But at this point in life, if you're listening to me talk about this, you are more than ready to integrate all those parts back together. It's kind of like how the ocean might break off into different rivers, which break off into different lakes and streams and babbling brooks. It doesn't change the fact that this massive body of water is just spread thin. And so if we imagine your energy being that same way, we just need to collect that energy back together. Bring those babbling brooks and those lakes and those rivers, those streams, all back to that main big beautiful body of water so that you can know and recognize all that you are. But if you don't look at the fragments, if you don't listen to the voices in your head, then you will continue to deal with feeling like you are being anchored back by some invisible force. And it's not invisible. It's just parts of you that you won't look at. And so while looking at fragments can be overwhelming, it can be emotional, it can be scary, it is so liberating and it is so worth it, because you're going to find your superpowers and those parts of you that other people might at some point in life found unacceptable. And maybe they taught you to find that part of you unacceptable as well, but it's still a part of you. And unacceptable by social standards or not, you need to work to understand and to show compassion towards it so that you can integrate it and help it to understand how it can play a role in your current here and now life. We deserve our love. We deserve our acceptance. Even if no one taught us how to do it, it's worth learning right now. So continue having conversations with me on how to do this, and let's dive deeper into fragmentation, the voices in your head, how many of them there are, why they came to be, and exactly what they want and need so that you can integrate them and be the whole beautiful mosaic you have been always destined to be.